I'd like to introduce myself to any of you that don't know me. My name is Ragan Freitag, and I am from Wilmington. This is my hometown. I've been on the county board for 2 years now, and the Illiana is a project that we're all concerned about. This is my hometown as well as yours, and as much as I have been involved or have attended meetings or researched the project, unfortunately the county board doesn't have anything to do with whether or not the project is going to go forward or not. I have attended meetings where in Chicago that they have proposed the project going forward. I have attended meetings, IDOT meetings, that we've had public forums at the local 150 here in town, in Peatone, and along with my county board member, Judy O'Gala, who has definitely been involved in this process. She might be on her way. So, but again, my job is to represent the views of my residents, and I believe I have done that as much as I can in the meetings that I've attended. Moving forward, what I want to do is, I know that IDOT has had public forums and there's no question and answer, and that's not me to set up those meetings. What I can do is provide the people that are associated with the county, and that person here today is Mike Hansen. He's employed, or it's appointed by IDOT, but then also appointed by the Will County Board and the Will County State's Attorney. And what he's here to do, and he'll explain a little bit more, is he's a local attorney in the county, and I've known him, I actually went to high school with his son, but he's able to provide, certain legal advice and questions from you. And again, it's the county board, we appointed him so he could provide some questions and give some answers in regards to our residents, that some things that we can't answer, where he's a liaison between the county, our residents, and IDOT. In addition, we have 2 representatives here from IDOT, and I'll have them introduce themselves. But my role here is to provide my residents with as much information and pretty much promote what is out there and what's available for you guys to use. So not just this meeting, Mike has office hours, you can call him, you can make an appointment. So beyond this meeting, he is available to you. And if anyone couldn't make this meeting that please, give out Mike's information.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ragan. As Ragan indicated, my name is Mike Hansen. I'm an attorney in Joliet. I've been practicing law for nearly 40 years. And I was appointed to this position, as Ragan indicated, by the Will County State's Attorney, and then approved by the Will County Board. And my role, my technical title is Ombudsman, which is a fancy way of saying I'm supposed to help and be a source of information and assistance to all the various property owners and people that are interested in the Illiana, and hopefully provide counsel, not act as your individual attorney, but through this process, answer questions, work with IDOT, work with the IDOT consultants, and trying to make this as as painless a type of process as possible. I know this has been a long project down here for all of us, and you're going to hear in a little bit the actual status of where we are right now. We're very fortunate that we have John McDonough and Mike Culligan from IDOT here to address this evening. And then, as Ragan indicated, I'll make a few other final comments, and we're here to answer any questions, give you as much information as we possibly can about what's going on. And my role, as she indicated, is to assist you. We've had one meeting over at the eastern end of the county in March. During that meeting, just to introduce myself and to introduce anybody that can help us out. And during that time period since then, the project has kind of continued along the lines, and IDOT will tell you exactly what's been happening since then and what's the next steps here for the rest of the calendar year. And so I think what we're going to do here tonight, we'll have John and Mike make a little introduction. I'll probably make a few other comments, and then we'll open it up for questions. And we'll be available after the meeting to answer any individual questions or get any individual comments that we can have. And Ragan, you got to pass out a sign-in sheet We would like it if everyone here could sign their name and their address, phone number, and/or email address. Emails are very helpful. That way we have an idea of who's here, be able to assist you in any way possible, and provide that as a source of information for us in the future. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce John McDonough and Mike Culligan here from IDOT. They're from the Land Acquisition Department. Now, they are not going to be able to answer probably every single question because I'm not 100% familiar with all the inner workings of IDOT, but they have, there are a lot of people involved at IDOT and Schaumburg working on this project. They're right in the middle of everything, and I think they're the right people to come here this evening and address us with respect to where the land acquisition stands and where it's all going. So, John and Mike, thank you for coming.
Thank you. John McDonough, I'm Bureau Chief of Land Acquisition for IDOT District 1. Mike Culligan, also from our Bureau of Land Acquisition. Basically what I can do is kind of tell you where the process is in very general terms. We are, of course, land acquisition folks. We try to keep abreast of the regulatory processes as this is moving forward towards approval of the federal final environmental impact study. That is done through a process called through a document called the Record of Decision, which is issued by the Federal Highway Administration. The Record of Decision had been expected to have occurred a little bit sooner than it's now expected. There was some expectation that it would be something that would happen early summer. It has been moved back. During that time, the IDOT has been working with all the resource agencies, working with elected officials, working with citizen groups, virtually trying to answer every question, particularly with respect to the process for approval of the FEIS for the ROD. They meet with all the federal agencies and state agencies that are consulted in the ROD process, and over, my understanding, 1,000 inquiries since the Tier 1 ROD was issued. This is the Tier 2 ROD that we're working toward, and we're trying to resolve every issue that's raised so that the ROD can be issued in a timely fashion. It is believed that the ROD is now expected to be issued this coming winter. As you may have heard, there is no land acquisition to occur prior to the environmental approval of the process with the ROD. And what the Department of Transportation has been doing has been trying to put itself in a position to have the properties surveyed and appraised and do preliminary work to be in a position to commence land acquisition with the issuance of the ROD. Mike Culligan can talk more about the land acquisition process and what's involved there. So I'll turn it over to Mike Culligan.
As John mentioned, everyone has already, my name is Mike Culligan with the Illinois Department of Transportation Bureau of Land Acquisition with John. He's my supervisor, so he'll make sure I don't get out of line. Relocation, property management, and appraisal is my specialty, although I can walk you through the entire land acquisition process if that's what the questions pertain to. As John kind of alluded, we will not be able to make offers until that ROD is executed, which we think is now sometime later this winter. However, you've undoubtedly seen a lot of land acquisition work already being taking place, to this point already. You've seen land surveyors out there on your property. You've been hopefully If you are a property owner that is directly impacted, now, if you're not somebody whose property we need to acquire, you would not have received a letter from an appraiser. However, if you are a property owner whose a portion of your property or your entire property you need to acquire, you should have received a letter from an appraiser by now asking to set up an appointment to walk your property with you. We estimate about 285 to 300 pieces of property that we need to acquire for this project, of which we've inspected probably about 250 to 270 of those properties already. So I gotta believe that almost everyone in this room, if we're buying right away from you, if we're buying your property from you, you should have received a letter from an appraiser and been contacted by an appraiser by now. Once those appraisals come in to our office and they're completed, and again, just give people some, I know it's hard to give peace of mind, but I know we do a lot of these public meetings, and one of the questions we receive all the time is, well, you're gonna hire an appraiser and tell them what number to come back at. We hire outside independent fee appraisers. As John can attest, we no longer have any staff appraisers at IDOT on our staff. So we hire out consultants to do all of our appraisal work. The initial appraisal is done by an independent fee appraiser. His or her report is then turned into an independent review appraiser, who then reviews that work for quality and accuracy. Once that appraisal is reviewed, it then gets turned into our office. We have actually seen some of the appraisals start to trickle in. We would imagine over the next probably 6 to 8 weeks, 10 weeks, we will see, the majority of the appraisals start to come in. Once that appraisal is completed, it then gets handed off to a negotiator who would come out to present the offer to you, the property owner, based on that appraisal report. We hire outside negotiators also. We no longer have any negotiators on staff. So just to try and give you a little bit of peace of mind here that these aren't IDOT people. Again, as I said, we hear this often where we're steering, the appraiser, or we're steering the negotiator to get a certain value. We're taxpayers also ourselves. We're spending your money, we're spending our money. We're gonna pay the fair market value for the property, whatever that is determined to be. I don't want to sound callous and say we don't care what we pay. Certainly we care what we pay, but we're not directing anyone to a certain value. It is completely independent. If we're unable to, once the negotiations start, and again, that won't be possible until the record of decision is signed. Our anticipation is to be ready to go, though, once that record of decision is executed by the Federal Highway Administration. We hope to be in a position to get out there and begin making offers to all property owners, very quickly after that record of decision comes down. You'll be afforded plenty of opportunity to review the offer. You're welcome to have your own appraisal done and use that as a basis for a counter offer. We try to afford ourselves a very reasonable window of opportunity of probably 3 to 6 months to try and come to a negotiated agreement with the property owners. We don't want to end up in Joliet in the courthouse any more than you do. We try to come to a negotiated agreement with as many property owners as possible. Are we going to end up in the courthouse with some property owners? Yes, we fully understand that. And that's what we call a condemnation process, where we are not able to come to a negotiated agreement on value, or sometimes we are actually able to come to a negotiated agreement on price or value. But there is a cloud on the title. There's an issue on the title that we're not able to clear up ourselves, and the courts have to resolve that issue for us. So sometimes we end up having to go through a condemnation process based on something we see on the title policy. Once we go into the court system, the department will present our argument with our appraiser and our attorney. You'll be afforded your opportunity to present your argument with your appraiser and your attorney, and we'll let the courts decide what the value of the property is. Once we take title to the property, and once we have title to all the properties that we need for this project, we'll then be able to go forward and begin the construction project, which hope is sometime in late 2015, possibly 2016. John, do you want to add anything
No, I
as to
think
the process?
handled it well. Maybe you want to touch on the process.
Right. Of the 285 to 300 parcels that we need to acquire, you'll be the first, ma'am, you'll be the first person. I saw your hand go up. Of the 285 to 300 parcels that we do need to acquire, not all of those require someone to be displaced. As I said, one of my areas of emphasis is relocation, where if a structure, a building, a house, a barn, a shed, office building, manufacturing plant, whatever the case may be, is in the alignment for the highway and needs to be acquired, and an occupant of that building, residential, business, farm operation, needs to be displaced, we will, carry out the relocation process at the same time that the negotiations, or I shouldn't say carry it out, but informing you at the same time that the negotiations begin what your relocation eligibility and benefits are. Roughly, we're somewhere in the ballpark of 60 to 75, maybe 80 displacements on this project. Some properties have 2 displacements. Say you have a 80-acre farm with your house on the farm. We consider that 2 displacements. It's a residential displacement. It's a farm operation business displacement. So we're estimating anywhere from about 60 to 80 displacements on this project. We will work with you to find you a comparable dwelling from which we found you. We will work with you to try and move your farm operation, your business, your manufacturing, your manufacturing shop, whatever the case may be, move you from point A, the property that we're acquiring, to point B, a new address. As I ask people, have you ever moved voluntarily? Have you ever moved on your own? It's a pain in the rear end to move when you've decided to move. Now you've got someone coming here and saying, you know what, folks, we're sorry, you can't say no, you have to move. So an involuntary move is an even bigger pain in the rear end. We are here to try and make that process go as smoothly as possible. It's not a perfect process. Been doing this for 27 years. I'll tell you right now, it's not a perfect process, but it is a very, very good process. It is just, difficult to pick up and move from point A to point B at any given time. But we're here to try and make that happen as smoothly as possible.
Mike, if I could, before we just open it up to general questions of the audience, maybe just a couple of questions that I keep getting asked, and I'll ask. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you. I don't know, this is your representative, John Anthony, sorry if he was running a little late, but,
I was down dealing with the NRI.
okay, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I'll be brief as possible. I'm John Anthony, state rep for the area. I'm here to learn. I do know that Representative Larry Walsh had some questions about the Illiana in the last few weeks of the legislative session. So I'm here to learn. I've been talking to the mayor, getting his feel for the Illiana, and also been in contact with IDOT as well. So I'm here. It's out here? Auburn? No, it's not in there? So I've been visiting a lot of the homes in the area too, where the Illiana corridor will be located. So I'm just here to learn tonight. Thank you.
And then just to introduce some other officials here, like John had said, the mayor's here. I also have Speaker Brooks, who's on the county board with me, as well as our chief of staff, Bruce Freitag. So.
Anyway, Mike, if I could just ask a couple of questions and then just to turn over to the audience. Is the route, especially in this area, is the route finalized?
The route throughout the Wilmington area has been determined.
What were we waiting for on that?
Pardon me?
What were we waiting for on that?
Well,
Sitting here wondering for months.
there was some decision as to, in the vicinity of Bobcat Field, where the alignment would go. That decision has been made, and Bobcat Field at this time will be impacted by the project. if it had been shifted, and I don't mean to speak for our Phase 1 engineers, they're not here tonight, and I will keep it brief. John and myself don't have a lot of the technical answers. We are not the engineers who have studied this thoroughly and tried to make the best decision possible as to the alignment. But the current alignment that will impact Bobcat Field, if that had been shifted further to the north, I believe it is, would have entailed the acquisition of possibly anywhere from 30 to possibly 40 additional homes. So that decision has been made. As far as we know, as John and myself know, we will be continuing to impact Bobcat Field at this time. Mike?
Yeah, a couple of other questions here, Mike, and then that answers that one. The idea of what they call quick take. Okay, can you discuss that, that term with everybody here and
Sure.
the impact of that?
Quick take is something that is, I want to call it privilege, but it's centralized, and the word I'm looking for escapes me right now. But quick take is a word, is a capability that the state of Illinois has to acquire property in order to move a project forward on a timely basis. The municipalities don't have quick take, the county doesn't have it, townships don't have it. They can get it enacted by the legislature, it takes a special vote of the legislature to have it enacted for a short period of time on behalf of those agencies. The state of Illinois has that in place, at all times. Quick take works this way. We come out and make an offer to you, the property owners. Again, as I said before, we try to negotiate a settlement on all properties. Is that possible? No. We're talking about 300 properties here. We're not going to come to an agreement with every single property owner. That's our goal. Realistically, that's not going to happen. However, what the state of Illinois has the right to do is to go into court. If we come to an impasse and we can't come to a negotiated agreement, we eventually refer to the court system through condemnation proceedings. As I noted before, IDOT shows up at the quick take proceeding. Our attorney, our appraiser, present our case. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, just throwing a name out there, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, property owner, and their attorney, their appraiser, present their case. The judge listens to both sides and will set what you call a preliminary just compensation. He's listened to both sides, he's listened to both arguments, and in his or her opinion, the judge rules for a preliminary just compensation to be paid to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the property owners. That's not a final award, it is just a preliminary compensation that once IDOT pays that money to the property owners, we then receive title to the property. Now, this is something that does allow us to advance the acquisition of all the right-of-way that's needed on a more timely basis and allows us to go forward. And we use this on all of our projects. It's not just specific to the Illiana Expressway. We use this on all of our projects. And the idea behind it is, otherwise you'd have one property owner, say you only needed to buy 10 properties for a project, and one property owner held out for 3 or 4 years. And you had to go through the normal court proceedings, which might take 3 or 4 years, depending on what county you're in. Cook County, maybe even longer. So you're talking about delaying a project 3 or 4, 5, 6 years down the road. Your estimate to do the project was $10 million. 6 years later, all of a sudden you're at $18 million or $14 million or some higher amount. Quick take allows us to get title to all the property that we need on a more timely basis and advance the project forward on a more timely basis, more cost-effective manner. As I noted before, it's preliminary just compensation, which is set at the quick take hearing. It is not final judgment or the final dollar amount. That is later, at a later date, that is negotiated between the property owner and the state of Illinois. Two parties get together and 99% of the time hammer out a final number. I shouldn't say hammer out, negotiate a final number that is reasonable and acceptable to both parties. Our goal is not to go into court and go to a jury trial. That happens less than 1% of all the properties we acquire. Quick take affords us the opportunity to get title to that property, as I said before, on a more timely basis, and move that construction project, down the road and get it started.
Okay, Mike, you indicated earlier that the record decision would probably come later in winter. Once that comes and offer letters are then sent out by IDOT, approximately how much time will the people, at least who aren't totally relocated, which would be most of the people, how long will they have to make a decision, engage an attorney, et cetera,
The first thing, once we